We're counting down the top 10 darkest mysteries and folk beliefs from the Appalachian Mountains. On a map, these mountains look like simple ridges and valleys. You see green forests, winding roads, and small towns. But if you dig into the local memory, the landscape changes. It becomes a place where sound travels strangely and history doesn't always stay in the past. We are talking about lights that appear before cars existed. We are talking about painted ceilings that act as shields against spirits. And we are talking about rules for the woods that people still follow right now. The number one spot goes to a legend so aggressive it is the only ghost story in America that claims a legal murder. Let's begin with number 10. Fact number 10. The blue paint that stops spirits. Most people walk onto a southern porch and just see a design choice. The ceiling is painted a soft pale blue. It looks nice. It matches the summer sky. But in Appalachia, that color is doing heavy lifting. It is not there for style. It is there for protection. Locals call the shade Haint blue. The belief is that malevolent spirits, or Haints, cannot cross running water. That is the gap in their power. So people found a workaround. They painted their porch ceilings and door frames to mimic water. The idea is simple, but brilliant. A spirit approaches the house. It looks up. It sees what looks like a river or an endless sky. It gets confused. It turns away. The paint acts as a force field without using a single brick. This tradition started with Gula Geechee culture on the coast, but it moved into the mountains and stuck. It stuck because it gave people a way to secure their homes against invisible threats. And here's the thing. You can still see this today. Drive through rural Tennessee or North Carolina right now. You will pass brand new houses that still use this exact shade. The homeowners might tell you it is just tradition, but the roots go back to a very specific fear. It is a trick of the eye meant to keep the inside safe, and that blue paint is still doing its job on thousands of porches this afternoon. Fact number 9. The secret words for burns. In deep hollows, medical help was once a day's ride away. If someone got burned, they couldn't wait for a doctor. So, a different system emerged. It is called buying the fire or talking out the fire. On the surface, it looks like nothing is happening. A healer leans over a burn. They do not touch it. They do not apply salve. They just whisper. To an outsider, this looks like empty superstition. But the reports from witnesses are consistent and wild. They describe angry red skin turning pale. They describe blisters fading before they fully form. The pain stops almost instantly. The method relies on strict rules. The healer usually blows gently on the injury while speaking. The words are never said out loud. They are whispered low, and the secret can only be passed to one person of the opposite gender. A man teaches a woman teaches a man. If you tell too many people, the power fades. That scarcity keeps the tradition alive. It makes the knowledge feel heavy. And this is not just history, it is still happening. In modern kitchens across the mountains, people still call a neighbor when a pot boils over. They don't ask for ice. They ask for the words. The burn gets whispered to, and the heat goes away. It defies medical textbooks. Yet the practice remains right now, moving quietly from one generation to the next. Fact number 8. The schoolhouse that sounds busy. Hikers in the Great Smoky Mountains often head to the Little Greenbrier Schoolhouse. It sits alone in the forest, surrounded by tall trees and silence. The building has been empty since 1936. That is 90 years of vacancy. But visitors keep reporting that it doesn't feel empty. The structure was built in 1882. It served as both a school and a church. The floorboards are original poplar planks. And that is where the stories start. People describe hearing heavy footsteps walking across the room. The sounds follow a specific path. They start near the door and move toward the teacher's desk. It mimics the movement of a class starting. Natural settling happens in old wood. Boards expand. But these sounds happen on days with no wind. They happen when no one else is inside. It gets weirder. Some people report hearing faint laughter. Others hear hymn-like tones drifting from the cemetery across the road. The cemetery holds the graves of the people who once filled the room. This creates a loop. The building stands still, but the sounds of its past keep playing. Cameras fail inside the single room. Batteries drain instantly. Then they work fine once you step outside. The schoolhouse is a shell, but the activity reported there suggests the energy never left. It is a quiet spot on a map that gets very loud if you listen closely today. Fact number 7, the lantern that searches forever. Nolan Creek flows into Fontana Lake on the North Carolina side of the Smokies. It is a beautiful, rugged area. During the day, it is just woods and water. But at night, a specific light appears that shouldn't be there. Witnesses describe a glowing orb. It doesn't look like a flashlight beam. It looks like a flame inside a glass lantern. And it moves with purpose. It doesn't drift with the wind. It bobs up and down. It swings. It looks exactly like a lantern held by a walking person. The light moves through the trees, pauses, and then continues. The story behind it is tragic. Locals say a settler lost his daughter in these woods over a century ago. She wandered off in the fog. He spent the rest of his life searching for her. He died without finding her. The belief is that he never stopped looking. That is the gap between a ghost story and a landscape feature. This light has been reported for decades. It appears on foggy nights just like the night the girl vanished. It moves along the creek where the old settlements used to be. Some of those settlements are now underwater, covered by the lake, yet the light continues its patrol along the water's edge. It vanishes at dawn, every time. The sun comes up and the woods go back to normal, but for campers who see it bobbing through the mist, the search feels very real. It is a heartbreaking loop that is still running tonight. Fact number 6, the hitchhiker. On Roaring Fork. The Roaring Fork Motor Nature Trail is a narrow winding loop outside Gatlinburg. It cuts through thick forest. It is scenic and popular, but one specific curve holds a legend that drivers keep running into. The story always starts the same way. It is winter. The air is cold. A driver sees a young woman walking on the side of the road. She is barefoot. She looks frozen. The driver stops. It is the human thing to do. She gets in. She gives a name, usually Lucy. She points the way to a cabin up the road. The car moves through the dark. They make small talk. Then they reach the spot she pointed out. The driver turns to look at her. The seat is empty. That is the jolt. But here is the detail that sticks. The seat isn't just empty. It is wet, or in some versions, it is ice cold. A physical trace remains. The driver often checks the area. They find an old foundation where a cabin used to be. Later, they might ask locals. They learn that a girl died in a fire there decades ago. This story follows the classic Vanishing hitchhiker pattern, but the location locks it down. It is always Roaring Fork. It is always near the burned cabin site. The repetition is what makes it wild. Different drivers, decades apart, report the same sequence. The road looks normal. The pavement is solid. But the story keeps replaying. It turns the standard drive into a ghost hunt. And people still slow down on that curve right now just to check the shoulder. Fact number 5, the resort that time forgot. Elkmont sits deep in the Smokies. If you hike there today, you see a strange mix. You see forest, and then you see rows of empty cabins. You see stone chimneys standing like monuments in the grass. This wasn't always a ghost town. It was once a booming resort. In the early 1900s, this was a playground for the wealthy. The Wonderland Hotel held dances. Trains brought tourists from the city. People drank lemonade on wide porches while electric lights glowed in the valley. Before that, it was a logging camp. It was loud, dangerous, and busy. Then the national park was formed. The leases eventually expired. The people left, but the buildings stayed. Nature took over fast. Trees grew through porch slats. Roofs collapsed. The Wonderland Hotel burned down, leaving only bricks, but the atmosphere remained. Walking through Elkmont feels like walking through a pause button. You can see the outlines of where furniture stood. You can see the rail beds carved into the hills. It is a ghost town that didn't disappear, it just stopped. The silence there is heavy. You are standing in a place that used to be full of noise and music. Now it is just the sound of the river and the wind. It is a physical memory of a time that ended, and you can walk right through the middle of it today. Fact number 4, the sound that predicts death. If you are in the Appalachian woods at dusk, you might hear a sound that stops you cold. It is not a hoot, it is a trembling, high-pitched whinny. It sounds like a horse or a crying woman. That is the eastern screech owl. And for generations, that sound has been terrified people. In the mountains, this isn't just a bird call, it is an omen. The belief says that if a screech owl calls near your house, death is coming. It gets specific. If it calls 3 times, it is a warning. If it flies into your window, the news is bad. This belief is strong because of the sound itself. It triggers a primal reaction. It doesn't sound natural. It sounds like distress. People developed countermeasures. If you hear it, you are supposed to turn your pockets inside out. Or you squeeze your wrist. Or you throw salt in the fire. These are small rituals meant to break the bad luck. It sounds like old superstition. But the fear is real. The woods are dark. The sound is chilling. It creates a moment of pure dread. And here's the thing. People still do this. You can find men in their 60s who will instinctively turn a pocket when they hear that tremble. The bird is just marking territory, but the story has turned it into a messenger, and that message still carries weight in the dark right now. Fact number 3, the lights above. The Ridge Brown Mountain in North Carolina is a long, low ridge. It looks boring in the daylight. But at night, it puts on a show that physics cannot fully explain. The Brown Mountain lights are famous. They are glowing orbs that rise from the ridge. They hover, they drift sideways, they vanish. Skeptics say they are just car headlights or train lights reflecting off the atmosphere. That makes sense. Refraction can do tricky things, but there is a problem with that theory. The lights were reported in 1771. A German engineer named William Gerard de Bram recorded them. He saw them rising from the mountain. This was over 100 years before the light bulb. It was before cars. It was before trains. That timeline destroys the modern explanation. The U.S. Geological Survey has studied them. They found that some lights were indeed cars, but they could not explain all of them. They appear erratically. They come in different colors, red, white, blue. They move in ways that gas pockets shouldn't. So, we are left with a mystery that has survived 3 centuries of science. You can go to the Overlook tonight. You can stand there and wait. And there is a real chance you will see something that was puzzling settlers before the country was even founded. The ridge is still keeping its secret. Fact number 2, the rules of night. Whistling. There is a list of rules for the woods that you learn early in Appalachia. Most are practical. Watch for snakes. Bring water. But one rule is purely about the supernatural. Never whistle in the woods at night. The rule is strict, and the second part is even more important. If you hear a whistle, never answer it. The logic is terrifying. The belief is that the woods are not empty. There are things out there that mimic human sounds. They want to locate you. A whistle cuts through the trees. It travels far. If you whistle, you are announcing your position. If you answer a whistle, you are inviting company. Locals say the sound might come from a spirit, or a haint, or something older. The legend says the whistler will draw you off the path. It will lure you into deep brush or over a ridge. This rule changes behavior. It forces silence. It makes people walk quietly. It turns the forest into a place where you have to be invisible to stay safe. It is a psychological firewall. And it works. Even skeptics stop whistling when the sun goes down. The woods feel too big and too dark to take the risk. The rule is simple, scary, and people follow it today without asking why. Fact number 1, the witch that ended. A life. Most ghost stories are vague. They feature creaky floors or cold spots. The Bell Witch legend is different. It features a specific entity, a specific family, and a body count. This happened in Adams, Tennessee, between 1817 and 1821. That is a tight 4-year window of chaos. The entity targeted the Bell family. It started with knocking. Then it escalated. It pulled hair. It slapped faces. It spoke in multiple voices. It could quote scripture. The violence focused on the father, John Bell. As his health failed, the attacks got worse. When he finally died, the family found a small vial of liquid in the room. The legend says the spirit claimed it gave him the poison. It took credit for his death. That is the detail that sets this apart. A spirit claiming a murder. The story was so big that Andrew Jackson reportedly visited the farm. He left after his wagon wheels froze, and the spirit humiliated his men. The center of the legend is the Bell Witch Cave. It is 490 feet long. It runs under the property. It is dark, damp, and echoes. You can walk into that cave today. The farm is still there. The stories haven't faded. They have gotten louder. People still report scratches and voices in the dark. It is a legend that anchors itself in history and dirt. It isn't just a story about a ghost. It is a story about a force that won. And that victory keeps people coming back to the cave right now, hoping or fearing that they might hear a voice in the dark. These 10 mysteries show us that the land remembers. The pavement and the power lines cover up the old world, but they don't erase it. The lights still float, the burns still heal, and the woods still demand silence. All you have to do is listen.